So now what about common cold? So common cold is caused by a virus. Actually large number of viruses can cause common cold, but the most common virus that causes common cold is a rhinovirus. A rhinovirus. So this is the agent of common cold. So mind you, this is not the only one which is actually capable of causing common cold. There are other viruses as well. One of them is RSV, what is called as respiratory syncytial virus. But we are talking predominantly of the main agent, which is rhinovirus. And you can immediately understand that there are actually large number of nasal symptoms. So you know, rhino word is for nose. So that means the large number of symptoms that is going to produce would be related to the nasal passage, and this is the site actually in the body where it prefers to grow. The reason is that here the temperature from with respect to the rest of the body may actually be low, and therefore this may be a preferred site. And again, it is a respiratory infection. It is a respiratory infection, and it is transmitted by droplet, and we know about the contaminated surface. So again and again I am telling you about the importance of the contaminated surfaces, the fomites that are being used by the infected person. And again, please try to understand that how this infection can be easily transmitted. So it is called as cold, and it is actually believed that in colder climates it actually happens. It doesn't happen in other times of the year. So that is actually a myth. And a healthy human being may have 2 or 3 episodes of common cold throughout the year. The children may actually have larger number of episodes, and it is not so that it will be happening only in colder regions. But still there is some association, and that we are not able to exactly explain that what is the reason behind it. But probably the social factors may be playing a very, very important role, because in the colder region people are expected to live in crowded places. They are expected to live close to each other, to the children. So that may be a reason why it is transmitted more easily. And we know that cold weather actually has an adverse effect on the immune response as well. So these may be the 2 possible factors for why this seasonal predilection of this infection, but it can happen in other climates as well. The most important question that we are looking at this is the mode of transmission. It is a respiratory disorder, droplet, and please remember contaminated surfaces. And again, you can easily understand because now everybody is aware of how these things can be transmitted: the social distancing, wearing of surgical mask, wearing of any protective mask, and obviously the sanitization, the hand washing, the continuous hand washing, avoiding touching the face with your hands. These are some very, very important measures that are involved in the prevention of common cold. It will be important if we talk about a little bit about the symptoms, because I say that it is predominantly present in the nasal cavity. So the symptoms are also predominantly from the nasal cavity. So the person may have rhinorrhea. So rhinorrhea would be running nose. So the person may have rhinorrhea, may have sneezing, may develop redness in the nose. And obviously this is a very, very important thing that actually points towards the infection with common cold. And there may actually be in some cases there may be sore throat, and as is common with many viral infections, there can be a mild fever. So mind you, this is not a very, very important feature. Not a very high grade fever is expected here, but there may be significant myalgia, fatigue, muscle pain. This is a very, very important thing, and it may persist for actually a few days. It may persist to few days, and normally only the supportive treatment is required here. You can give zinc supplementation, no doubt about it. That will decrease the duration of the disease, but otherwise no particular cure for the disorder, and prevention is again of paramount importance for common cold. So I hope now now you understand what is common cold. One more thing, please do not confuse between common cold and influenza. So we will be talking about influenza later on in the second video, but this is something different. Now I am coming to an important topic, and this topic is about malaria. So you can see that I am trying not to laugh here, because my experience with students is that they actually just go into the life cycle of the malarial parasite like hell. And actually they know more about malarial parasite even more than the malarial parasite itself, and that creates a problem, because the question can be very, very simple in the NEET entrance exam. Again and again I am telling you, please be absolutely sure about the basic concepts given in NCERT, and obviously you will have to extend the NCERT, but do it logically. So it makes no sense understanding the life cycle. They just go on what is a hypnozoid, what is metacryptomerozoid, what are this, what are that, and it means nothing. It means nothing. Believe me, there can be a very, very simple question that can be asked here. So please limit yourself to NCERT textbook, and let us look at this. What are the possible questions? So what I will do is I will try to ask a lot of questions here. I know that you have read this this disease in detail. So please tell me the pathogen. So this pathogen is a protozoan. Name the pathogen. So the pathogen is a protozoan. It is called as Plasmodium. Name the species. Vivax. It can be ovale, it can be falciparum, and it can be malariae. It can be falciparum and malariae. So this is falciparum. So I have written the wrong spelling for the most important one, malariae. And please remember this, that they cause what is called as tertian malaria. So tertian malaria, do you know what is tertian malaria? This causes what is called as a quartan malaria. So now let me ask you some questions. Let me check your knowledge, how much you have read. Please tell me what is the difference between a tertian malaria and a quartan malaria. And this Plasmodium falciparum actually causes malignant tertian malaria. This is an important question. Now why malignant? So why malignant? Because it has some very, very serious consequences. One is cerebral malaria. It can reach the brain, and the second is black water fever that involves damage to the kidney. So how is it transmitted? It is transmitted by a vector, and this vector is female Anopheles. So female Anopheles. I have seen students reading the differences between Anopheles and Culex, how they sit, what is the angle of their body, etc., what is present on their body. Please leave it. This is not required at all at your NEET entrance examination. So please remember, this is female Anopheles. Why only female? So this is an important, why the female Anopheles actually takes the blood meal. So the answer is for reproductive functions. So this is for reproductive functions. There is a question in your ecology section that why it should not be considered as a parasite. So parasite by definition actually requires two things from the host. One is the shelter and second is the nutrition. And female Anopheles is not taking either. So therefore it should not be called as a parasite. So this is an important thing. So please remember that these are the things that can be asked. Obviously, you must know a little bit about the basic life cycle of the Plasmodium. And please remember this. Schizogony or schizogony, however you may actually pronounce it. This is the spelling. This is a mode of asexual reproduction. This is multiple fission, and this happens during the life cycle of malarial parasite. Obviously sporogony also takes place. So we are talking about schizogony. I am telling you it's a type of multiple fission, and the cell which will be undergoing schizogony will be called as a schizont or schizont, and the progeny thing, the resultant cells would be called as the merozoites. So this is one thing that that it will be helpful if you try to remember this thing. And then let us come to the basic questions that actually you can be asked from the life cycle of malarial parasite. So what is the infective stage to the mankind? This is question number 1. So that means the malarial parasites are present in the salivary glands of the mosquito, and what are present here, what is the stage? This stage is called as a sporozoid. So mosquito bites, inoculates the sporozoids into the human blood, and this is what is called as the infective stage to the mankind, and it enters into the blood, and from the blood it goes to liver, and in the liver it will undergo the first of the asexual reproduction or the schizogony, and in the liver cell it will undergo, and then it will rupture the liver cells and the merozoites will be released, and these merozoites, some of them can actually re-enter the liver cell so that they continue to produce merozoites. This is called as exoerythrocytic schizogony. So the first organ where they multiply is actually liver. This is not RBC. And then what happens is that other merozoites actually enter RBC. They actually enter RBC. They start feeding on what is there to feed in RBC? The hemoglobin. So they keep on feeding on the hemoglobin molecule, and what happens is that there is a stage that comes during feeding which is called as the signet ring stage. This is how you can actually diagnose the infection. What happens is that this is RBC, this is the malarial parasite. It has a vacuole, and when it actually accumulates the nutrients. The vacuole gets larger and larger in size, and what happens is that the nucleus is pushed to the periphery and it looks like a ring. So this is called as a signet ring stage. This would be seen in the RBC, and then it will develop into the adult stage which is called as trophozoite. So this is again an important point. This is the adult stage which is called as the trophozoite. This is happening within the RBC, and then obviously again this trophozoite will be getting differentiated into a C joint and will undergo a multiple fission, and then it will rupture RBC and the merozoites will be liberated in the blood. So again the merozoites are liberated in the blood, and along with the merozoites what happens is, because of the rupture of RBC, the hemozoin granules are released into the blood. So you remember that it was feeding on hemoglobin, and what happens is that this toxic thing is released in the blood. This is called as hemozoin. Again an important question, and because of the release of the hemozoin there is paroxysm of malarial attack. So the malarial attack actually occurs because of the release of the hemozoin, and these merozoites will further enter into RBC, and obviously some of them will again undergo the sequence and again releasing more, but the other actually get converted into gamocytes, and it is at this stage that the female anopheles again takes a blood meal. So it may be gamocytes, it may be actually sometimes gametes as well, but this is largely the stage at which the female anopheles takes a blood meal again, and these things are actually transferred to the gut of the, so it goes to the gut of the mosquito where all other stages, remember, so anopheles is not going to pick from the blood only these cells which are containing gamocytes. It will be taking the blood meal and everything may be present here, but all other stages are digested except the gamocytes, and then what happens is that there can be microgametes and the megagametes formed, and then there would be fertilization. So this is an important question. The fertilization occurs in the gut of the mosquito. So gut of the mosquito is the place where the fertilization occurs, and this fertilization leads to the formation of zygote. The zygote is initially motile and it is actually called as an ookinete, and it actually pierces the wall of the stomach and goes to reside beneath the peritoneum, where for some time it loses its its mobility gets converted into an oocyst, and after a resting period undergoes sporogony, produces sporozoites, and these sporozoites are released in hemocoel. You remember, this is the cavity, the main cavity that is present in arthropods, and from the hemocoel this goes to the sporozoites. So this is basically an abridged type of life cycle that you must remember about Plasmodium falciparum. So most important question is the infective stage to the mankind. Question number 1. Question number 2, which is the first organ where this actually multiplies, and then it enters into what causes the paroxysm or the attack of the malaria. So the release of hemozoin. What is the signatoring stage where the adult feeding stage is actually achieved, and then where the fertilization happens, and then what are the sporozoites. And these are the main questions that they are likely to ask you. So where is the sexual reproduction happening, where is the asexual reproduction happening, and do you know that we define the primary or definitive host by the criteria that in the primary or the definitive host the sexual reproduction actually in the life cycle of the parasite takes place. Now can you tell me that which will be the definitive or the primary host in cases of malaria? That can be a question that they can actually ask. So this is what we must know about the life cycle of malarial parasite. And because in this video we are going, this will be the last disease, so let me rub it out and now understand the clinical features. So what are the clinical features of malarial attack? So there is a stage of intense cold. So initially there is a stage of intense cold. There is huge amount of shivering. The person feels a lot of cold and actually shivers a lot, will take 1, 2, 3 blankets, and then suddenly the temperature rises high. So this is called as the hot stage, and the temperature may actually be very high. It may actually be very high. It may be 103, 104, even more than that degree Fahrenheit. And then finally after few hours it comes down with profuse sweating. So this stage I will call it as an effervescence. So there is a huge amount of sweating and the temperature actually comes down and the cycle repeats itself periodically. This is a very important infection. It is one of the most important killer of mankind's ever, malaria. So this is a very significant disease. It had huge economic impact on the human race as well, and it is very important. We must be very thankful to the scientists who actually came to know about the life cycle of this. Initially people used to say that it is mal-air. So we are talking about a few hundred years back, when the science was not able to answer the question. People used to think that when there is mal-air, buri hawa, then when it actually flows, the malaria happens. So this is the myth that has been broken by science, and some very important, very good anti-malarial drugs are now present, and they can be effectively taken care of. So this is the clinical feature. How do you diagnose it? So how do you diagnose it? The diagnosis is by a peripheral blood smear. So you make a thin film and a thick film of the blood. So you take peripheral blood. So peripheral blood can be taken from any part of the body. You put it on a slide and you slide the other slide over this and make a film. And this film should be a thin and a thick film, and then you stain it and watch under the microscope. You can see the malarial parasite present inside the RBC. It is sometimes good to see, easy to find the signatoring stage. So you look at the RBC, you see the malarial parasite present in it. You are directly watching the malarian parasite, and that would be the diagnosis. Obviously there are some rapid antigen tests available for malarial parasite. Obviously RT-PCR, again polymerase chain reaction can be very important in diagnosing in certain circumstances the malarial infection. And after diagnosis, obviously the treatment. So the treatment would be anti-malarial. It will be important. If you remember, this is the first time I am telling you some drugs. Drug can be chloroquine, but most of the times you will find that this drug is not working. The parasite is actually resistant to it, and then you can use what is called as quinine. And there is a Chinese medicine, and the Chinese medicine is artemisinin. This is for your general knowledge. And and this is very, very effective in treatment of malaria as well. And then come what is called as prevention. So prevention would be preventing the mosquito bite. So there would be one aspect of prevention would be prevent the mosquito bite. So that would be personal protection. So mosquito repellents, the tubes, creams, etc., that can be applied. And similarly, the use of mosquito net. So mosquito net can be very, very important in preventing the bite by the mosquito. That would be one strategy. The second would be that you actually decrease the population of the parasite, and therefore you do something that actually prevents the breeding of this of the vector. So the vector is female anopheles. You actually prevent the breeding of the vector. Obviously you are going to control the disease, and because the vector breeds in fresh water, the stagnant water, so we say that people should not allow the water to get collected in their home and in their vicinity. That can be a very, very important strategy. Obviously there is a role for some fishes like gambusia that feed on mosquito larvae, and they can also be helpful in preventing the population of the vector, and therefore keeping in check the incidence of malaria in certain places. So in this part of the video, I have talked about all the diseases that the first part of the diseases that have been mentioned in your NCERT, and we have discussed all the possible questions that are likely to come. Again, as always, I will advise you that after the video, please go through your NCERT, and please remember, do not try to do anything extraordinary here. And these are the questions that are likely to be asked. If you want to do more, you can actually look at the questions that are given in your master class. You can go for even say, for example, this time let me tell you that you can go for mastering NCERT if you are feeling very, very confident. But I will advise you first to look at NCERT, then the understanding NCERT, and the previous year questions are absolutely must.